Good evening, and welcome to tonight's School Board Candidates Forum featuring individuals running to serve on the Linn-Mar Community School District School Board. My name is Bob Hoyt, and I have the honor of serving as tonight's moderator. I'm married to Karen. We have two sons who both graduated from Linn-Mar. I'm a 1968 graduate of Linn-Mar High School, so you don't need to do the math. I'll be 67 next week. I taught in Cedar Rapids for 10 years, and I was the athletic director and associate principal at Marion High School for 3, and then for 18 years I was the middle school principal, and that about killed me, so I retired at that time. I retired in 2008. I've supervised student teachers for Iowa State University since then, and I also serve as public address announcer at a number of athletic events. School boards play a unique role in school district governance and provide a venue for communities to have democratic input into local education decisions. To effectively execute their responsibilities, school board members must clearly understand district governance and have a strong commitment to advancing student outcomes. As school board members are elected, it's up to voters to select the most informed and competent individuals to fill these roles. Tonight, we're providing an opportunity for our candidates to demonstrate their knowledge of both the conditions that allow boards to be effective and the specific challenges facing their district. This year, voters will elect 3 individuals to serve on the board. We will record tonight's forum, and it will be posted to the host organization's YouTube channels Friday. Tonight, candidates will be asked a variety of predetermined questions. Additionally, we ask members of the audience to submit questions by writing them on the note cards available in the room. If you do not have a card and would like to submit a question for consideration, please raise your hand and we will get one to you. If you do have questions, please submit those to Nick Clue, sitting to my left. Unfortunately, with the limited time we have this evening, we'll do our best to get through as many questions as possible. We won't accept questions attempted to be presented verbally from members of the audience or the media in attendance. Please use the provided cards. We'll be presenting questions on a rotating basis, meaning each candidate will have the opportunity to have both the first and last remarks throughout the evening. Responses will be limited to 60 seconds. We ask that candidates pay attention to our time cards at the front of the room in order to help us move through as many questions as possible this evening. Jill Ackerman, the Marion Chamber President, will monitor response time, and do not make Jill angry. We'll begin by asking each candidate to introduce themselves and provide us with a little background as why they believe they're the best candidate to serve the Linn-Mar School District. And we begin with Robert Anderson.
Well, good evening, and thank you to Medco and the Chamber for the opportunity for us to speak tonight. My name is Bob Anderson, and I have just completed 41 years of teaching in public schools in Iowa, 22 of them at Linn-Mar High School. And that is one reason that I feel that I can provide a view of where education has been, where education is going, and how we can best make that happen through the governance as a board. The other element for me, though, that even drives me more is the experience that my family has had in this district. My wife, Jill, and I have lived here since 1995. Our son, Matthew, was born here, went through school at Linn-Mar, graduating in 2015, and received an amazing education because of the foresight of a board that developed what Linn-Mar is today. I want to give back. And I think that the management skills that I learned through the teaching that I did at Linn-Mar and running a program of its size give me the managerial experience as well as the educational experience I hope to offer, as if you'll vote for me.
Bob Gable.
Hi, I'm Bob Gable. I've also moved to Marion in '95, so I've been a resident of the school district in Marion for 22 years. I'm a 35-year employee at Rockwell. I have 4 children, 2 older daughters that have graduated from Linn-Mar and are now members of our community, as well as 2 younger sons. So yeah, I'm the old guy with the young kids. But one is going to start in Echo Hill in the fall. So my job at Rockwell has freed me up to allow me time to give back to the community. So I thought, how best with a son going into school and my experience at Rockwell in solving problems, looking at areas of growth, finding efficient ways of meeting the needs of the community, or in our case, the customer, and bringing those forward. I wanted to bring that to the school district as we look to the growth going out into the future. So I'm a good listener. I believe I can solve problems, build consensus, and drive things to a very efficient result. Thank you.
Derrick Jensen.
Good evening. My name is Derrick Jensen. I've been a member, or a resident of Marion and a active participant in the Linn-Mar School District for 10 years. We moved here with a first grader, a toddler, and a newborn. Like a lot of people, we moved here specifically for the educational opportunities that our children were going to receive. We researched where we were going to live in the greater Cedar Rapids area, and we picked Linn-Mar for that reason. Since that time, I've served on various positions of the Echo Hill Elementary PTO. I served in the 2009 and 2013 boundary committees, where I got to meet all kinds of interested Linn-Mar parents that were concerned about where their children were going to be going to school. Since that, and most recently, I've been a member of the Facilities Committee that helped the administration come up with the plan for the bond issue that is coming up in September. I'm running for school board because I believe in the importance of high-quality education, and I'm an advocate for this district, and I'm an advocate for this district's teachers and students. I absolutely support this bond issue, and I am ready to serve you as a member of this board. Thank you.
Kara Lawson.
Hi, I'm Kara Lawson. I have 2 daughters in the district. I may be the lone Cedar Rapids resident on this panel today. We live in just outside of Marion and Robbins. Both my daughters have attended Bowman Woods. One of them is moving on to Oak Ridge this year. My husband and I are both public school children, and what the public schools have given to us is invaluable as a family, and what Linn-Mar has given to our family has been invaluable as well. And with my experience serving on Bowman Woods PTO and countless hours volunteering in the district and supporting our teachers, I would love the opportunity to do that in a more official capacity, if you will give it to me. So, thank you.
John Sauer.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank the people that organized this, and I'd like to thank all the people that came out to show their interest in the school board. My name is John Sauer. I'm a retired school superintendent. I live in the Linn-Mar district and have been here for 12 years. I have 2 grandchildren who attend Linn-Mar schools, and I've decided to run it this time because I believe that Linn-Mar has a great reputation for excellence in academics, athletics, and the fine arts, and I'd like to see that reputation continue. And that continuation comes from good leadership and thoughtful planning. I had a 33-year career in education. I was a teacher, coach. I've done just about everything except be a cook, and I knew those people really well. This particular school assignment, that when I was a counselor, gave me the opportunity to deal with all kinds of communication and all kinds of conflict resolutions. And I can see that 60 seconds is not going to be near long enough for everything I have to say. So that was about half of my introduction. So maybe I can get to the rest of it later.
Rachel Wall.
Hi, my name is Rachel Wall. My husband Nate and I have 2 daughters, Aubrey, who is 4, and Hannah, who is 9, and will be a 4th grader at Indian Creek this year, where I volunteer. I'm running for school board because I'm passionate about education. It's the great equalizer, and I have seen the impact that it makes in people's lives. I think the board can benefit from diversity of thought and diversity of opinion, and I believe that as the mom of elementary-aged kids that I can offer a unique voice. I want to continue to make sure that all of our students here at Linn-Mar and all of the staff have the necessary tools for success and an opportunity for a bright future.
Thank you. Candidates, I will repeat questions if you want me to, so just ask. The first question, and this will begin with Bob Gable. How will you build consensus and community support around the work of the school district, and who do you bring with you to the table?
it's not so good. It's an interesting question. Well, let me take it backwards. I think from a building consensus is, I think, one of my skills. And what I'd like to say that I bring to the table is both my personal experiences as a parent, but also as a member of the community, and the willingness to reach out to all those that want to participate, hear their opinions, and again, try to make an objective decision on where the board needs to go as a school district, both in the areas of growth and education, supporting our staff and our students as they work through the process in the school. And now I've forgot the first part.
The first part or the second part?
I tried to answer the second part, so let's go to the first part.
Okay, the first part. How will you build consensus and community support around the work of the school district?
Okay, so I probably tied the two of them together. I apologize. I think the board, I don't want to claim to have any great experience, but over my time in dealing with similar type activities, I think working with them and then reaching out whenever possible to build that consensus, I see the 60 seconds is what I'd like to be able to do.
Okay, thank you. Derrick, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got it, Bob.
Okay.
Building consensus running the community with our district, and what am I going to bring to the table in order to do that? Networks. I believe in the time that I've been here, it's not just been an Echo Hill experience. I grew my network through our PTO experience and sharing district-wide ideas across the 7 elementaries. As our kids grew up and got more active in things, our network around the district continued to grow. I look around, I'm hoping there's a good third of everybody in this room that I know right now in different roles and different responsibilities, but I believe that networks and listening to the community and being able to bring those ideas forward as a member of the Board of Education is important, and that's what I will do.
Okay, Kara, would you like it repeated?
No, thank you. As far as building consensus on the board itself, as well as in the community, I think my experience working with the board already is going to help with that immensely. I've worked with the board and the administration in my capacity on the facilities committee, working towards developing the restructuring plan that is before you. I have worked with the teachers in our building as a member of the PTO, and as far as who I would bring to the table with me, like Derrick had mentioned, my network of fellow parents, and through athletics, but really through just my involvement in the district and the advocacy that I've been able to do with my fellow Linn-Mar parents for public schools in general, but specifically for Linn-Mar through meeting with our legislators. And you know, we've just done a lot of talking over the last couple years and advocating for all of our students and for our teachers.
Okay, John?
I think the only way to build consensus is good, open, honest communication. And I think that, like Derrick said, listening is a big part of that communication. I was the district superintendent for 17 years. I think I can hit the ground running. I already know, I've planned board meetings. I've dealt with school law, annual school budgets, teacher and staff, contract negotiations, passage of bond issues, building construction, school district policies, personnel issues, and special education procedures. I've been through all of that before. And so I think I already have knowledge of the inner workings of a school district. And I think that brings unique experiences to the board that would not be possible with maybe some of the other candidates. So I'm comfortable speaking with all factions of the community, and whether they're students, parents, or anybody else in the district too.
Okay, Rachel?
Okay, well, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Derrick and John said. I think you build consensus by listening. You listen to parents, you listen to teachers, you listen to the board members, and you listen to people in the district that don't have kids. They're paying taxes too, and they want to say in what's going on. So I think you have to bring all of those people to the table, and you have to really listen. And you have to know who has expertise where. So, you know, when you're talking about making school policy, We really need to listen to the teachers. And also I think that we have to not just communicate, but be transparent about our communication, because that's how you build trust. And if you want to build consensus, then you have to build trust.
Do you go by Robert or Bob?
Bob.
Thank you. Bob.
I should have known when I turned in my papers. It should have said Bob instead of Robert. Amy even said, Angie even said, Robert? Yeah, Robert. My mother would have wanted that. So, sorry, I'm wasting my time. But I feel like it's going to be a little, it may feel a little like summation, but I think the important words that you listen to me, obviously are listen, transparency, and connection. Building a connection among the people that don't have kids in school with the people who do, within the district, building connection among the levels of education that are happening in each building. And that takes getting out and reaching people. And I feel that's one of the reasons I decided to do this. I'm going to have some time as a retired teacher to actually go into places and talk with people, and really listen on the issues as they hear them. I do that well. I've done that with students for years and listening to how they are growing as students. And I've done that with other parents and other organizations that I've worked in. And that consensus building is done by listening, transparency, and then working with people to get to the right answers.
Okay, the next question will begin with Derrick. How should teacher performance be measured, and what are some of the challenges inherent in evaluating teachers?
Teacher performance in their job, in their role as an educator of our children, I believe, one, it should not be measured as a function of student performance. That growth over time, growth from a certain point to another point is fine, but solely based on student performance or student achievement is not the answer. So let me get that out of the way. That being said, I find it rather curious that adults in general don't like being evaluated. I got to sit down in front of my boss twice a year, once for the really big discussion. I don't like that evaluation. It makes me uncomfortable. But if you have good goals and you have good progress and you know what it is that you're doing in your role, regardless of you're a teacher or an engineer, you should be able to have those conversations with your supervisor or boss.
Okay, thank you. Kara?
For measuring teacher performance, it would be easy to just sit back and look at test scores, right? Because that's what the state wants to look at. They want to look at how our students are doing on the test scores compared to other students in the state. But that's not reflective of what our teachers are doing in the classroom. The teachers that I meet with and that I see every day are emotionally invested in our students' success. And it's not just their ability to read and write. We have teachers in our district that have to teach our students to do the basic life skills. So measuring that is difficult. Their performance has to be measured subjectively to some extent. It would be interesting to get student feedback. I know that doesn't always go over well at the collegiate setting, but I feel like that would be a good thing for the teachers to see. But as far as challenges in evaluating them, again, it's hard to, you can't just look at the test scores that those teachers are, we have to look at the student holistically.
John?
The first thing I'd like to say about evaluation of teachers is this: it's not a function of the school board. That's a function of the administration. So the school board is involved with teacher performance and evaluation by hiring good administrators. I do believe that Linn-Mar already has in place a mentoring and coaching situation, which a lot of school districts do not have that. That is one issue that we don't have to be concerned about as much because it's already in place. I would say that I think the thing that I looked for the most when I hired a teacher was I want somebody who cares about kids. Not necessarily up on the latest research, but do you really care about the students that are in your classroom? That's the first thing, and that is the most important thing, I think. There are a lot of students in today's world that they really don't have somebody in their life that cares about them, I think. Linn-Mar is really lucky in that way that there are many, many parents that do care about their kids.
Rachel?
Well, I was thinking that getting the question last would be good, but maybe it's not so much. I don't want to be copying people. I think a lot of what John said is true. I don't think it is a function of the school board to evaluate teachers. I don't think that it should be solely based on test scores. I think test scores are important. I think they give us an idea of what's going on, but it's important to remember that they're just a snapshot in time, and that there are other factors involved besides just, you know, how well kids are learning math, you know, that go into how well they do in testing. But I think what the board does have control over is, you know, hiring a good superintendent, hiring good administrators, and, you know, having good people in place, because teachers really should be evaluating teachers. I'm not in the business of teaching. I've never been in a classroom before, so I would have no idea how to say a teacher is doing a good job or not a good job. So I think teachers need to be doing that, administrators need to be doing that, not the board.
Bob?
The term evaluation is always been challenging to me as a teacher, because really what happened in my career was a development of how I functioned as a teacher. It was not about test scores, it was how I worked within a group of colleagues, teachers, administrators, a building, and our evaluation. There is now a very good system for that in our leadership system, teacher leader program, that's developing mentors and lead teachers. And even somebody who had taught 40 years was sitting down with a teacher leader to talk about how I was functioning in the classroom. I gained in wisdom because of that. That's really what's going on. You're developing. Linn-Mar's good at hiring outstanding teachers. That's true. What you're talking about in evaluation is developing them into amazing educators with children. And it always has to be there first, doesn't it? So what I would say is that there's a system in place. The board needs to be acting as a governing board to see that that continues. But management is management, and we're about governance. But developing amazing teachers is really the evaluation you're after.
Bob Gable.
Yeah, and it's not always bad to go last, I guess. I do agree that it's not the role of the board to measure the teachers. I think it's the role of the board to put the tools and the resources in place to ensure the teachers have what they need to teach in the classroom, have the resources to develop themselves, develop their skills, work with amongst their peers. I think if there is, I'm not a fan of metrics and stuff, because I've seen in my life where metrics look good but the outcome is bad. I think the ability to work together within the teams, within the schools themselves and with their parents. I think it's not hard to find out who the good teachers are and who the bad teachers are, or the teachers that need help, or however you want to word that. I don't mean to be too critical. I think it's there, and I think the parents of the students know it, and the principal of the student know it, and I think it's the job of the board to put the tools in place to help those that need help and build those that want to continue to develop and be the best teachers they can.
Okay, the next question, and Kara, we'll begin with you. Do you believe annual state funding increases in the neighborhood of 1% are the new norm? If so, how will districts need to fundamentally change how they do business? It's an easy one.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me personally, the state funding question is an easy one to answer. Do I think 1% is the new norm? I certainly hope not. And I will continuously drive to Des Moines to meet with our legislators to make sure that we make very clear that we're asking for 4% at least. What SSA has been brought down to is just unacceptable, in my opinion. I have had the opportunity to speak face-to-face with Ken Reiser. I have met with all of our constituents, and, or excuse me, not all of our constituents, I'm a little nervous, can you tell? With all of our legislators to discuss with them about how important it is to fund our schools adequately. What do we do in the event that they are not funded adequately? Well, first I can tell you that I will be out beating the drum for the candidates that will fund our schools adequately. There's an election cycle next year. You know, we can't just resign ourselves to inadequate funding, and I won't.
John?
Well, first of all, the state funding formula for school districts was written many, many years ago. And the first assumption that the state legislature made was that all districts would, you know, accumulate more and more students as time went by. That's not happening now. Linn-Mar is lucky in that our student population is growing. That's not true in 70% of all the districts. Think about this. If you lost 3 or 4% of your student body and you only got 1%, you're going backwards a long ways in funding. I have been through some state funding cuts. One time we were cut 10% across the board right after the first of the year. That's very difficult because school budgets have to be written way before you know exactly how much money you're going to get. So I've been through some of this financial you know, finagling and problems, and you know, I welcome the challenge to meet it again.
Rachel?
I certainly hope that 1% increases are not the norm, but given what we've seen from the legislature, I think we would be smart to sort of go forward in that belief. Whether that turns out, if they give us the money, fantastic. If they don't, then we'll have a plan in place. I don't know that we have to change how we fundamentally do business, but we're going to have to realize that that money is going to have to stretch ever further. And so we're going to have to really prioritize and get creative with how we spend that money. And what we need to make sure that we're doing is that we're putting students first every single time, and we're giving teachers the tools that they need to give our students what they need so that they can learn. Okay.
Bob Anderson.
To answer the question of do I believe it is, I think it's the immediate situation, 1%, and we hope that immediate is short. I will agree, 4% should be a minimum for schools in Iowa to maintain the kind of level that public school has been. It's necessary. The political atmosphere isn't there right now. We have to advocate for that to happen on all levels. Locally, we have to be in touch with our representatives. We have to show them what we need and sell those concepts. It's a sales business in that way. But the reality may be, and is in the immediate, that we have a small amount of money, smaller amount of money to work with than we ever have. And I agree that we have to be fiscally responsible to the people of this district. But the bottom line is, and no matter what we do with it, coming first has to be student success, growth, and excellence. That can never go away. With those parameters, we could develop a plan B to make sure that we're functioning okay for those kids in the immediate. But we have to work to make a difference in this state.
Bob Gable.
I think life is a lot about setting priorities. I think when we look across our state and even in our community, I think everybody would agree we try to put education as high on that priority as we can. I think you would ask the community and the people when they're voting for people in the state legislature, you talk to them about what their priorities are and make sure you're getting your priorities heard. I think at the state level and the local level, to me, there's always a lot of waste and there's a lot of opportunity out there to set the priorities and make sure you're doing the right things first. I think as everybody mentioned, I think as we all agree, education and our kids' future is, I think, #1 and should be #1. So from a more micro level down at our level, I think even within our school, I think what I would bring to the table would be my business acronym of, we call it lean, but cutting out waste, knowing what your objective is and finding a cleaner and better way to get there. And I think it's there. I would use the bond election. I don't think anybody doubts that we need the schools, but I would challenge us as a board to spend our tax money very efficiently, accomplish the goals that we want, but do it as judiciously with our funds as we can. Stretch that 1% further.
Derrick?
To answer the question, I hope not. 1% is inadequate for our district. It's inadequate for all districts. I know that the administration, in response to the 1% now, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but there are various scenarios that the administration has put together based on future funding and future look at that supplemental state aid. And kind of reflecting on what Kara said, that you know, I stood in front of legislators 2 years ago at the Capitol and asking for more and asking for more and asking for it sooner, because at the time they would wait until the last possible second to actually tell us what that number was going to be. They, at least this legislative session, told us it was going to be 1% early. That gives all school districts the opportunity to plan for that. And I know that over the course of their fiscal planning over the legislative session, they cut everything else in the state budget except for education 2 additional times. Now, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or otherwise. 1% is inadequate. I hope it's short term. And yes, I agree and I support 4%.
John, we're going to start with you with the next question. Do you see opportunities for the district to partner with other public stakeholders to realize operational efficiencies?
I don't know how to answer that one exactly, because I think there are always opportunities to offer more to students. But I also think that Linn-Mar's already doing a lot of good things with what they have. I think we could probably partner a little more with Kirkwood. I think we could partner a little more with some of our local colleges too. That's an opportunity that we need to take advantage of. I'm going blank on any other ideas about that.
Okay. Rachel.
I know that we have Iowa Big, where we partner with like the city of Cedar Rapids, and our students can go in there and work on different projects. I think that's great. Because not all kids learn the same way, and I think that can be a real opportunity for kids to maybe realize their potential. Maybe they feel like they're kind of checking out at school, but they get into doing something like that and they realize, oh, hey, I'm really interested in architecture or whatever it might be. So I think to the extent that we can partner with people to do those things, I think we should. But also off the top of my head, I don't know, you know, I don't have any ideas, you know, that we should go gangbusters and do something either.
Bob Anderson.
It's quite the curve, isn't it? But I think the reality is I think we would all agree that if the 1% or less money is going to be real, we're going to have to find creative ways to continue to fund the programs that we have. We're not just going to say quit. We can't do that to the kids. And every time you hit the kids that way, the world gets less capable at being great. And so we would have to investigate Iowa Big. We would have to look and see what industries we could get hooked in and how we could help education that way. We'd have to get creative about other state organizations or whatever to make funds work so kids get a proper education to be competitive in the world, no matter what they choose to do. And that's really lofty, because I can't give you a list of those right now. That's a really creative thing to do, and maybe a way that a board needs to look. There's a long ways to go before we're ready to say, I think it's this. It's the way I perceive it. But we need to be open to those kinds of creative moves if we're going to function in a tighter economy.
Bob.
I get some sense that there's a hidden something behind this question that I don't understand, but I personally think it's kind of a no-brainer. I think it is important for the school district to reach out to the community, be it businesses, be it even our neighboring communities, and find the most efficient way back to the 1% question or not, but to take advantage of each other, be it best practices, or by pooling resources, be able to bring more capability, more opportunities to our kids. I don't have an issue with that. I think from a Rockwell perspective, we talk about STEM programs and reaching out to the community to help in the sciences and the technologies, because obviously from a greedy perspective, we want engineers and people important in science and math. I think there's good programs out there. And I think that's how you leverage that tight dollar and expand it, and be it volunteers in the community or businesses in the community or neighboring things or Cookwood or whatever. I would be 100% and think that's what we should be doing.
Derrick?
100% agree. I believe that there are various pockets of opportunity that our students at middle school to high school level can take advantage of if only they know where to ask and who to ask. Specifically, we've got an engineer now that works on the government side at Rockwell that was a high school intern for me, his senior year in high school. That happened because of the network that he had and the network that I had, and we made it work. He went off to Iowa State, got that STEM degree like Bob said, and then came back to work for us, because that's ultimately what business owners, what businesses want, is a little bit I give to you and I get a lot more in return. So any opportunities like that. I know there was the board a couple of months ago had a presentation on the new YMCA and the building and the facility and the opportunity that has, being close to where our campus is at, and what we can do to explore those opportunities further. I'm all for.
And Kara?
Thanks. Sorry. Linn-Mar has historically tried to and succeeded and failed to partner with public stakeholders, namely the City of Marion, the YMCA, to realize the operational efficiencies, like you asked. Just like Wilkins, right? The playground at Wilkins is a city park, right? I got the right school? Somebody nod, okay. So we're doing this now. We're offering Kirkwood classes to our high school students. The Iowa Big program was mentioned. I was at a board meeting where Nick came from Medco and gave a presentation about a program that they're putting together with private entities to realize more opportunities for our students. This is something that we need to continue to do, whether it's with public stakeholders or private stakeholders. There are so many people in our district that are invested in the success of our students that we need to realize every opportunity we have to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, the next question will begin with you. As a school board member, from whom will you seek advice or input on weighing key issues?
I think I would like to talk to parents. I want to hear their feedback, what they think is going well in our district, what they think is not, going so well in our district. I really want to talk to teachers. We are in the business of teaching, and they are an invaluable resource. We need their input, and we need their input more, I think. I would talk to other board members who, have more experience, and I have done that. I've reached out to all the board members who will remain on the board this year. I think the big thing is, the more voices, the better, so that everybody feels like they're getting a chance to be heard. Communication is really key, and when I'm out talking to people, that's the one thing that I keep hearing again and again, is that, they just need to have more communication so that they know what's going on and they feel that things are transparent.
Bob?
Would you repeat the question?
As a school board member, from whom will you seek advice or input on weighing key issues?
That's an unlimited number of sources. I mean, look at this room. There's incredible resources right here. It is throughout the community, and so I think it would become, what issue is it? And I would hope to be familiar enough with the community that there's some experts on an issue that I would want to get information from. Absolutely, as many parents, you want to know how they feel about things. That's so imperative, because That's what supports the district. Not only the parents with kids, but the parents whose kids have graduated, who you're not in the district anymore, but they have history. They have a wisdom. I think there was a reference to school board members. We have had some brilliant school board members over the last 20 plus years. Many of those people are still living in the community. Some of them have been serving. And again, those are invaluable resources. You look for them wherever they are. You build consensus with them through listening and reaching out.
Bob Gable.
You know, when I first heard the question, I took it as kind of a little bit like Bob did, as one of those it depends, you know, what the key issue is. But we'd look to identify the, you know, the key stakeholders, but I don't know how you would ever not include, you know, the teachers, the students, the other members of the community, because obviously if it's a key issue, it's impacting all of us, be it a financial key issue or something happening in the schools themselves. And obviously the quantity of people, and that's not the word I'm trying to use, that you would reach out would depend a lot on what it is. If it's within the schools, I would obviously look to the teachers and the principals of those schools to help us understand the issue and make the right decision. If it's, you know, outside the schools, maybe we look working with the superintendent and other people, as Bob had also mentioned, former members of the board, key people within the community, and reach out to, again, like I said, all the appropriate stakeholders on whatever that issue may be.
Derrick.
Yeah, I believe that, in my opinion, that good decisions, especially when it pertains to this current board and prior boards, decisions that have been made over my 10 years here, were not done in a vacuum. They were not done with just the board members making a decision and then making it public at the next available meeting. I believe there's a lot of deliberation and a lot of conversation that goes on as being a member of this board, one of 7. We're all individual voices that, and all sides of a particular issue need to be understood and heard. And then as a collaborative effort, the board makes a decision together. And so as a board member, again, I'd reach out to my network, I'd reach out to the experts on a particular issue. I agree with what everybody said. Decisions are not made in a vacuum.
Kara?
I think that we all saw the survey that we had the opportunity to fill out last school year. It went separate survey went out to parents. Some of our students got to do a survey. The teachers and staff got to do the survey. I was so impressed with that direction that our administration and board took in making such a big decision. I would love to see that continue, to get that kind of public input on these major decisions that are going to be coming up over the next, really the next 10 years are going to be a time of enormous growth for our district. Personally, I have had the opportunity to meet and connect with some incredible mentors through my work in the district. I think that those would be the people that I would personally go to for advice in making decisions. But of course, the input of our constituents is invaluable because you're making decisions essentially for them. You guys are going to elect us and to make decisions on your behalf, so your input is of the utmost importance.
John.
I think the answer to this question relates back to question number 1, open, honest communication, the ability to listen, the ability to trust people and your board members. And I think that, you know, the obvious answer is teachers, administrators, community members, and so on. But I promise that if any issue we have, I will listen to everybody without judging, and hopefully find out all the information possible and make a decision based upon those inputs. Other than that, I don't think there is any other way to make a good, honest decision that will, you know, make the school a success.
Okay. Bob Anderson, the next question will begin with you. Describe your view of the roles of the school board and the superintendent. What is the ideal relationship between these two offices?
I've used the word governance several times in the discussion tonight. That is the role of the school board. That's delineated by the structuring of it from the state level, et cetera. It's a governing board. their employee that they hire is the superintendent. And so in working with that person, they have to have a strong, honest, transparent relationship that talks and feeds back and forth, so that then the superintendent then can deal with the management level of issues. So we need to be open and concise with that person, very clear what the goals are that we expect of them, and then help and nurture them toward that situation, building around policy, making decisions as a board. Some of them will be tough, and as this group of people would have arguments over, but arriving at consensus to give that management level what they need. Governance, listening to the community, as you've heard us talk about, is how we're going to get there, and that's the role of the school board, is to be that strong governing board.
Bob?
I think this might be one of those questions where the answers all seem a lot the same, because I think the charter of the school board is to be that governance thing and to set the vision and be the representation of the community of what we want out of our school district. What is our expectations of the school themselves, and communicate those expectations to the superintendent and hold him or her accountable to meet those goals. You have the tough discussions when you want to have it, but you also want to know that you got a superintendent who has the willingness to bring issues forward and be that channel also to feed back from the facilities and the staff on what the school needs to be successful. We all should have the same goal in mind. You know, what's the best for our kids? How can we bring them the best education and get them prepared for where they need to be in life after they leave the Linn-Mar school district?
Derrick?
Yes, providing that governance, that body that sets direction, modifies, changes policy when needed, approves policy on recommendation of the superintendent. But really, it is the governing body that sets clear direction and goals, and then evaluates the superintendent against those goals on a regular basis. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Kara?
Obviously, everybody has done a great job of outlining how that relationship looks. I have enjoyed watching the board develop the strategic plan that's before the district right now, and work with Dr. Shepard on the best way for him to implement the board's vision. I greatly look forward to the opportunity of working to further implement that strategic plan and working with Dr. Shepard through policy making, ensuring that the policies that we have on the books are being followed, and making sure that he's meeting the goals that we have set forth through him and changing them to new goals when he has established them. I look forward to a productive and fruitful relationship. That's kind of a weird word, sorry.
John?
The school board in the state of Iowa, by law, really only has 3 duties. They're important duties, but number 1, they hire a chief executive, which is the superintendent, and they are responsible for directing, overseeing, and annually evaluating that chief executive. And number 2, the board's responsible for creating, approving, reviewing, and revising all of the district policies on an annual basis. The revision and review has to be done by law every 5 years. And the third thing is they approve and review and oversee the budget. That's not quite as important as it used to be. I mean, money is important, but it's almost completely by state formula now. And so they still have a responsibility to oversee that budget.
Rachel?
I think the role of the school board is to be a steward for public education and to be a voice for the constituents. We have to employ the superintendent, as others have said, and make sure that he is taking the goals that we've set for him and accomplishing them, and we have to evaluate them, acting sort of as a liaison between the teachers and the board. And I think the relationship has to have a balance. We can't micromanage the superintendent, but at the same time, we have to hold him accountable to those goals that we set forth for him.
Okay, Bob Gable, the next question will begin with you. Please describe your past experience with conflict resolution and consensus building, and how will that benefit your service to this school board?
Oh, 60 seconds, huh? I think my career, both in the service as well as working with Rockwell, has had many opportunities to deal with conflict, with dealing with getting, maybe not like-minded people to work together, maybe having while we have a common objective, how do we get there? I've spent my whole career working through that and developing a consensus. So in the end, our team, whatever our team is, all ended up being focused on that specific goal. There's been a lot of times on programs that I've run huge programs that have had a lot of issues with our customers, issues with getting our engineering to do what we need them to do, and meet financial commitments and schedule commitments. And that's pretty much my daily job every day. So I think if I've got one skill, that would be the best one I have.
Derrick.
Yes, I agree with Bob. With large-scale projects, large-scale programs with lots of money involved, there are daily mini conflict resolution meetings you're having when you're working out dependencies between this person needs this or this person needs that, and how are we all going to work together to achieve a common goal, whatever that goal may be. It may be building a new building. It may be setting a new boundary committee. I'll give you a very specific example from my time in the 2009 boundary committee. It seemed like every meeting we would have, the notes would get published. The neighborhood that we had talked about the week before are reading about it, and they're the ones that would show up at the next meeting. We had already moved past that neighborhood. Well, it got to the point, I got in front of that a little bit. I went up and visited one of my coworkers that lives up in Hunters Ridge, and we had a community meeting in their basement, and 50 of his neighbors showed up, so I could give them a little bit of oversight of what it was we were doing as a boundary committee and where we thought it was going to go.
Kara.
So the easy answer to my experience with conflict resolution and conflict management would obviously be that I have 2 tween daughters and I work every day with my husband in the same office. But how about we'll talk about school instead, since that's a language we all speak and we're all here obviously very passionate about that. Like I had mentioned earlier, I served on the facilities committee. That was a big honor for me to be asked to take part in that committee. And we came together initially as a group of, I want to say it was it was well over 50 of us. And as each subsequent meeting happened, we would lose maybe 5, 10 people. Schedules happen, we all have lives. But we also were starting with big ideas and big wish lists of everything that we all wanted for our historical elementaries, everything that we all wanted all of our teachers to have. And we had to narrow the scope as we got quotes for what it was going to cost to build 5, 6 buildings, as we got quotes for everything else, and had to build a consensus on what was important for all of our students and our staff.
John.
I've had many years working with conflict resolution. I spent 11 years as a high school guidance counselor. I spent 4 years as a high school principal, and I spent 17 years as a superintendent. I've had people scream at me, yell at me, pound on my desk, and demand things. And what I always promised everyone, even if they were yelling at me, I promise I'll listen to you. I do not promise that I'll always agree with you. And you can scream and yell as much as you want, and I will listen, but if the answer is still no, it's still no. And I think that you have to respect that. Everyone has to have their values, and everyone has to live up to those values. The moment you give in to one special interest group, the next special interest group will say, well, you gave in to them, you can give in to me. And that's not the way we resolve any kind of a conflict. We have a board policy, and we'll lean on that policy whenever there is an issue.
Rachel?
I consider my job title as referee for two little people at home. That's what I do all the time, it feels like. I think that the way that you resolve conflict is by talking and communicating, and you do that a lot. And maybe you don't agree at first, maybe you come back to the issue again. I think the more that you talk about something, the more common ground that you can find. Building those relationships between board members is really important, because when you trust somebody, you don't maybe always agree with what they're saying, but you can try to find common ground with them. I think that's really, really important. And then I think, you know, there are 7 people on the board, and you're not always going to agree with every decision that's made. But if the majority of the board feels that, you know, a certain course is the right way to go, at the end of the day, you have to get behind the board and, you know, display a united front.
Bob Anderson.
I conducted high school choirs for 41 years. On a daily basis, I dealt with conflict. Now, that doesn't mean it was war in the room, but when you're building a product like a piece of music, it is a conflict to be resolved, because there's something you have to put together. And that's what conflict resolution is. We'll start with, if we're on the board, we'll start with a basis of how to have consensus. And yes, conflict will happen, but by listening and then honing what is excellent for students, we can make that conflict we can help that conflict to resolve. I may not get to the end and vote either way. I may vote either way, but in the end I have to understand that that's the decision reached by consensus, which is what governing is. And conflict resolution begins with knowing where you are, laying the ground rules of how you're going to get there, going through the struggle and listening and finding the correct answer. Conflict can be on lots of levels, even a piece of music.
Derrick, we begin with you on the next question. How does today's education system need to evolve to best equip students to compete in our global community?
Well, that's $1 million question right there. Technology integration, continued affordable technology integration. We don't know what our kids are going to be using technology-wise 10 years from now. I did discover recently that my junior does not know how to attach anything to an email because she doesn't do email. Those of us that are doing email, we've been left behind by the next generation. So that how best to affordably integrate technology into the classroom, into a student's learning over the course of their academic career is a very important question that I don't have an answer to right now. But I believe in order to compete on a global level, to have a world-class education system in the state of Iowa, that's something that we continue to have to stay on top of. And I'm sure these candidates are going to have a lot more ideas for you too.
Kara.
For our students to be able to compete in a global community, they need to be aware of their global community. A number of our teachers are giving our students these opportunities already. I have seen 4th grade teachers Skyping with people all across the globe once a week. It's incredible. And I think our students are very lucky that our student population is diverse. We have students in our schools from all over the world. But we need to continue to make sure that our students are globally aware and have the opportunity to then compete with students all across the world.
John?
I believe that today's educational systems need to concentrate on teaching children to be problem solvers. A lot of times that should be something hands-on. I think technology is good, but I don't think it's the end result of anything. Statistics tell us that most kids who are going through school today will change jobs 5 times in their working lives. And that means that they will be going into something totally different than what they were trained for. So we have to graduate thinkers and problem solvers. There's no other way to prepare a student for something, for some job that hasn't even been created now. I just read something online the other day about when all of you were in high school, maybe you had something called a computer lab. That's a thing of the past now. There are no computer labs. Everybody has their own individual computer. That's just an example of how fast the world is moving.
Rachel.
My mom always told me that a good education teaches you how to think. So I think, you know, to piggyback on what John said, you know, we've got to have critical thinkers. We've got to have kids that can solve problems. There are plenty of problems that will come up in this life, in this world, and they've got to know how to solve them. I do think that technology is going to be a huge part of that. I don't think there's any way around that. I think Linn-Mar should really think and start moving toward one-to-one. I was speaking with a teacher the other day. She said, wouldn't it be great if, you know, maybe the technology could read to the kiddos who are having a hard time. You know, I think technology rather can be invaluable. I think it has to be used properly. We can't rely too heavily upon it, but I do think that it can be an excellent tool, and I think that is the way that education is going. And we will probably, if every single student had a piece of technology, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. But you know, they could have the textbooks on that. If every kiddo had an iPad, you'd have no need for physical textbooks. And I think that's the way we're going.
Bob Anderson.
Learning is still learning. The process of learning is the process of learning. When we get into discussion about technology, it's really how does technology today best enhance that learning? And if we start from that basis, we can stay current, which will be important. This generation totally identifies with technology. In some ways, some of the biggest things we have to do is get them out of their technology and back into eye to eye and learning how to use their critical thinking through discussion. Where are the tools and technology to help us in all of those ways? That's, for me, the way I want to think about technology. We need to stay as current as we possibly can and aware of it, and know that our kids are going to need the opportunities to know what that is so they have the tools to be competitive in a global world through technology.
Bob?
Yeah, I think technology is very important in our life if you think back of how much stuff has changed just in the last, 20, 30, 40 years. But at the same time, I look at technology as nothing but a tool. We'll very seldom ever be able to keep up with it from a school perspective. I mean, by the time you buy every kid an iPad, it'll be something next, right? But I think it's important that we know what the technology is and just use it as a tool. I don't think it should be there to replace the core learning skills, which I think come from the teacher's interaction with the kids. And if the tool helps them do that, then so be it. Let's get the tool. But it can't be at the expense of the day-to-day interaction. I'm going to start singing here in a minute. Interaction with the students, I think, is a little bit as John was alluding down there. I look at if we can measure ourselves on what a kid graduates high school with, it would be the ability, in my mind, to do three things: to be able to communicate, be that verbally or written, be able to solve problems, logical thinking, and be able to know how to do research. I think those are the key skills that they need to graduate, whether they're going to go to college or, learn a trade or, whatever it is they choose to do in life. I think they need to leave school with that kind of capability. Yes, sorry.
Kara, the next question will begin with you. How will you communicate your work to your constituents? If you were to send a newsletter, around what 3 topics would you focus your updates? I didn't write these, by the way.
Well, how would I communicate? Right now, the district communicates with all of us through so many different channels, and it never feels like enough. It's never enough. There's always somebody that is missing the information. I would be talking to people. I would love to have one-on-one meetings with anybody that would like to. I would love to have group meetings. I encourage everybody to come to board meetings. I promise that they're not as boring as you think that they are. Just Monday night, I felt like we were in church. I am a Facebook user. I have learned that we need to be better at utilizing Twitter to communicate with younger people because they're not on Facebook anymore. We need to be communicating via email. We need to be communicating via our website. We need to be communicating via paper mail because our constituents are not all using technology. So I didn't get to my 3 newsletter topics, but.
Okay, thank you. John.
I think it is real important to communicate. It seems like we've had a lot of communication questions tonight, but I swore one time that I would never have a Facebook page, but I opened one up yesterday, and but it's just for this campaign. So, however, if it's halfway successful, I promise I will post, positive things there that are going on with the board, with the district, with students, with academics, athletics, fine arts. I think it's really, really important to, catch a kid doing something good and tell him about it. And everybody likes to see their name in print when it's a positive situation. And so I think I would probably use this Facebook if people start looking at it. And I don't know about the 3 topics, but I think anything that is happening with the board probably needs to be communicated.
Rachel?
I think we can communicate with constituents in a lot of ways, and I think we have to do it in a lot of ways because the different modalities are used by different populations. So we need to do that through the newspaper. We need to do that via the website. We need to do that on Facebook. We can also do that by just direct communication with parents, with teachers, making visits to the schools to get the input from the teachers is huge. I think that the more that we communicate with the constituents, the better. That's how you build trust among them. I'll keep my Facebook page up if I'm elected. I think that's a really good way of doing things because I think you can link. There are, as Kara said, a ton of different ways that the district communicates. So if you have this one central thing, like a Facebook page, you can link to the district's page. You can link to a Gazette article. And so people can go to that and get all of the information. And my time is up, so I don't have 3 updates.
Bob Anderson.
It's been too long. Would you read the question again?
How will you communicate your work to your constituents? If you were to send a newsletter, around what 3 topics would you focus your updates?
The front end of that is I'm still an email freak because that's how I grew up. But I have a Facebook account. And I also do, no, I don't do Twitter, but I've seen Twitter and I know what it is. I think we've all come to know what Twitter is. But the thing that I would say is we need so many avenues. If we could just get people to understand how a website works and how connected it could be, it would solve so many problems because I think what I just said, look at all those different ways to communicate. Well, of course people are getting missed because the same thing isn't said every time. Remember the old string in a can? Gossip. It happens too easily. So finding a concise way to do it. The 3 topics I don't think can remain consistent. I think the most burning topics right now are funding, growth, and for teachers, what happens now that collective bargaining is gone. Those are 3 big issues. And those would be 3 things that I would want to be talking about right now if I was doing a newsletter. So.
Bob?
Yeah, I think this ties a little bit back to the technology question. I mean, and, you go back and newspaper covered everybody. You either read the newspaper or you didn't. And today, it seems like every time I talk to my daughters, it's not Twitter anymore. It's something else that everybody's using. So it would be difficult to keep up with all the different communication tools. But I think it's important that you constantly, you know, understand the technology and maybe survey the students and the teachers and then the parents on how best to make that communication, because I don't think there's any one good way. I mean, you reach people a lot of different ways, maybe even old school newspapers to, you know, something that goes out on a blurb every day. But the three topics, I think, Bob's right because he's Bob, but I should have said a Bob, you know, right? But when you look, I think it might take a little bit different. We're facing us now. We're talking about the bond. I think it's important that we communicate why we need to do that, and people should get out there. We need to communicate the school board elections so people go and voice on who they want to do, and then look at things that are impacting, be it the union negotiations at the state level. I think is a little above us, but it's good to let people know what's going on. So yeah, I'm always pushing you. I had 65 seconds as well.
Derrick.
Yes, newsletter. Yes, I have a Facebook page. It is a place where my extended family out of the state of Iowa can see pictures of my kids. Yes, I have Twitter, and it's very seldom used, but I do know how to use Twitter. InstaSnap and or Snapgram or whatever they are. Whatever. No, I don't do those. I don't do those. But my newsletter, 3 topics, where we are growing today, probably some avenue of the district that maybe isn't well publicized, well talked about, focus on that. Second thing would be teacher focus, something a teacher's doing in a classroom or doing as part of a collaborative effort with a group of teachers. And then something around where I, as a school board member, networked recently. I know all of the board members today, they've got various responsibilities with, you know, whether it's chamber meetings, city council meeting, Medco meeting, and they always bring those back, you know. So there's larger networks out there that they bring back to the board to discuss what you know was talked about at those area events.
Okay, John, the next question you'll answer first. What do you feel are the district's greatest capital needs right now? What was your involvement in the recently adopted strategic plan and facilities plan?
Mainly just observation and comparing it to things that I've been through in the past. I would like to take this opportunity to say that I'm running on experience, leadership, and trust. We all know that the district is growing, and we need to do something. If you looked at the percentage of students in each of the buildings in the district, they're all almost right at capacity. And my promise to the district would be this, that I will lend my expertise to the building and construction and remodeling that needs to be done, so that we do it in the most economical way. And if the board, or if the bond doesn't pass, then I will try my hardest to help create a new plan that would be more acceptable to the district. So either way, I think my leadership experience will be valuable.
Rachel.
We are being squeezed. Our schools are being squeezed. We are approaching capacity in some places. We are just bursting at the seam in others. We've got portables out on the parking lot in Indian Creek. I know a lot of people have thought those are construction buildings. They are not. They are portable classrooms. We will have 2 5th grade classes in there this year. And if we don't pass this bond, we're gonna have many, many more. The bond is a great plan. It's addressing the populations at the elementary school, gonna help funnel some of that out, and also at the middle schools to help funnel some of that out, take the pressure off of both of those with those 2, 5, 6 buildings. And we just need that because we're there, we don't have space. Where are we gonna put our kids? You know, there's another K4 building that will get built, and if the bond passes, but this bond really does need to pass. There's just nowhere to put the kids.
Bob Anderson.
The capital question's clear. We need this bond issue to pass. When people hear bond issue, and particularly in Iowa, it's really a challenge. It's a challenge because people They don't like property tax and they don't want it to go up. I'm one of those people. But we also have to do a 60% passage of a bond, which guarantees that the people, I understand, it guarantees that the people are firmly behind it. And Linn-Mar has been historically good about this. They've recognized it. I hope the atmosphere is there to make that happen, and that people realize. I looked at there's on the website for there's a chart that'll tell you exactly what it's going to cost you if it passes and how it's going to affect your year. In our house, it will be not horribly significant, and it's going to do so much for so long for so many children. It's what it does for kids, and it's just us getting out there. Two things: talking to people about its importance, how it really is going to be okay to do it, and then please get out there and vote. We've got to take care of that capital issue for bonding.
Bob?
I think if I listened to the question correctly, it was what have I done to be involved in the strategic plan and the capital stuff, and admittedly very little to none. I stayed only involved as a parent and as a taxpayer, watching things come and be announced on the board. I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of increases in property tax, but I will also admit, having read the work that the current school board did and the superintendent on putting the plan together, communicating what it means to taxpayers and why we need it, I was sold on it. So while I don't like paying any more money than the next person, I'm all in on that. As going forward, why would I be here on the school board if I didn't involve in that? I want to make sure that while we're taking that tax money, we're doing the best job we can with that money, giving the school district what it needs to grow and take care of our kids, but not gold plate anything along the way.
Derrick?
I promise not to talk at all about the historic buildings, because I think the fine candidate to my left is going to say some things about our historic buildings and the priorities that those buildings have as part of this bond campaign. I'm going to speak as an Echo Hill dad. I've been at Echo Hill since the day it opened. This is now my last year at Echo Hill. My experience as a parent, my children's experience as students at Echo Hill, that school has been full since the day it opened. That the staff and the teachers at that school have done amazing things with the existing footprint and turned teachers' lounges into classrooms, turned science rooms into classrooms, turned pod areas into classrooms. We need this bond to pass. We all realize that. We need to get everybody that we know out to vote in support of this bond. As a member of the facilities committee, I witnessed firsthand what I didn't realize as an Echo Hill dad. The things that the students and the teachers have to deal with in our historic buildings is, I think, what Kara's going to talk about next.
Kara?
Toss that nice little softball. Thanks, Derrick. I am a parent in one of our historic elementaries, and I've had the opportunity, while serving on the facilities committee, to tour the other two historical buildings. It's unbelievable. I invite every single person in this room, August 24th at 5:30, to come to Indian Creek Elementary and see firsthand what the staff members and students in that building are dealing with. It's incredible. The offices that our support staff are occupying are closets. You've never seen anything like it. As far as the work that I have personally done, I am behind the Vote Yes for Linn-Mar campaign with my dear friend. We are conveying information to you every day. We are answering your questions. We are fundraising to get yard signs, so everybody that doesn't have the time or the drive to come to this meeting will know that the community is behind the bond campaign. So that, I guess, is the work that I've personally done.
Okay, the next question, Rachel, you will answer first. Recently, the Linn-Mar School Board voted to oppose a change to the city's zoning code that would have allowed bars and restaurants to operate later than 11 o'clock on sections of Tower Terrace Road. You believe it's the school board's role to take public positions on community development projects?
I do when they affect our students. We are in the business of educating, and to have those businesses open at that time of night would be a disruption for our kiddos who are getting up and going to school early in the morning, who need a good night's rest. So to the extent that community issues affect our students, our teachers, our staff, yes, I think we absolutely should take a position on those issues.
Okay, Bob.
I think we, as a school district and as a school board, you have to be constantly aware of the atmosphere of the community. And if that atmosphere is going to affect student learning in any way, we have a responsibility to have a response to it. And because that's part of the voice that needs to be heard in the decision-making that a city council would make. They need to know how something is impacting as Linn-Mar Community Schools and their students are, and what that impact would be on them is really critical. So yes, I believe that the school board does need to make statements in that situation.
Bob.
Yeah, I think it's important that the school board takes a position on things that can impact the school and the learning that goes along there, and voice their concerns and their opinions on things that could, negatively impact the schools nearby. In the case of Tower Terrace, I think it's close enough to the school that it should have been voiced by the school board on their concerns. But then again, at the end, we're one voice, hopefully representing many. But those neighbors and those people around there would voice their opinions as well, and I would assume that the city council would hear that and make the appropriate decisions from their constituents at large.
Derrick?
Yes, I agree. In this particular issue, when it affects our students or affects our campus or affects the area around it, yes, absolutely, we should at least make whoever aware that something needs to be done. But it's not just the rezoning and the time closing of the stores. There's issues and discussions around crosswalks on C Avenue now that we have a large population of homes going in on the west side of C Avenue across from Oak Ridge and Echo Hill. I know those discussions are going on actively now. Discussion about a pedestrian crosswalk on 10th Street eventually, and when that comes, and how we pay for it, and who pays for it, and so on and so forth. So there are many things that we as a board will have influence over representing our students and our parents.
Kara?
I'll just kind of echo the sentiment that Derrick just gave. As Linn-Mar grows, Linn-Mar is growing because Marion grows, and there's a reason that we send school board members to city council meetings, to all the community meetings, because the growth of Marion directly impacts our school district. As far as like this specific Tower Terrace issue and the rezoning of Tower Terrace and the board's official statement on it, like I said, I was at the school board meeting yesterday morning, or evening, sorry. And I think it's important that the board itself, we've talked about consensus repeatedly up here, that the board itself has a definite consensus when they're making a statement like that is probably going to be the most important piece, because it's probably not the first and it will definitively not be the last time that it has to happen.
John?
Well, I agree with most of what was said. I'm not 100% sure the board can stop something like this development. However, they have every right in the world to express their displeasure with it. There are other places that these types of businesses can be moved, and maybe the people who are making this development need to be encouraged to take that move.
Okay, thank you. Bob Anderson, will begin with you with the next question. Do you have any specific issues which you would like to influence that are motivating you to run for the school board?
I don't come with an agenda at all. The only agenda I have is how do we make innovative, amazing education happen for students. Now, beyond that, there's some immediate issues that we've all referred to, the budgetary issues right now, overcrowding issues that are going to continue that we have to constantly address. But one that I think has been a little bit slighted tonight is we are as a board, this board is going to have to figure out how we're going to function now that collective bargaining is not there. That has been thrown back to the school districts. We have to protect and take care of the amazing staff it gets in front of those kids every day. There is no system right now because of the way that the situation. And that's someplace that the board is really going to struggle in figuring out how to do that, getting the right guidance and making sure that those issues are clearly handled. And we don't have a lot of time to do it. The contract that is in place will not be there that long. That will be a major struggle for the school board.
Bob Gable.
Yeah, I think my interest in running from the school board is kind of a little bit twofold. One is a little bit on the taxpayer and the parent balance on making sure we're doing the right thing when we do go forward with this bond election. I feel pretty confident it'll pass. I think if anybody reads the material that the school has put out, I don't know how they would vote against it, but I want to make sure we're very judicious in the use of those funds and is really focused on making the environment for our teachers and for our students to be the best possible, so they do graduate with the learning skills or the life skills that I talked about earlier. And I think if in the end that's what I want to try to be involved with, is to make sure we stay focused not on testing, not on metrics, not on those kind of things, but making sure our kids are graduating with the skills they need to be productive as they go forward in life, wherever life takes them.
Derrick.
My tipping point and the reason I'm running is because of the way we developed the plan around the bond issue, the original plan and how it transformed into this plan. And it's not a negative against the current board. I just realized that I wanted to be involved in a long-term plan to make it as cohesive and as cost-effective as possible once we get this bond passed. That being said, in getting to know various people in our buildings, in our administration, and our teachers, the retainment, recruitment, and development of an amazing workforce within this district has got to be the highest priority. Because at the end of the day, we'll make the building thing work, however it ends up. They're just buildings. But without those teachers in those classrooms, and I'm in no way, shape, or form an expert on the educational environment and what our teachers are dealing with, but just the personal interaction I've had with all of my teachers that my kids have had, and the administration and other teachers within the district, that we just need to make sure that's our #1 focus.
Kara.
100% agree with Derrick and supporting our teachers, and my way too long opening statement rambled on about how incredible our teachers are and our staff and the things that they do for our students. I think one of the things we need to be cognizant of as Marion and the surrounding area grows is the shift in our demographics. We've been very fortunate to have I'm trying to think of the best word to say it, a good tax base, if you will. Marion is now the 19th largest city in the state. It's going to continue to grow, and that will change. And I am incredibly passionate about equity and ensuring that we are protecting and ensuring the success of our at-risk students in our schools. Given the opportunity, I will talk your ear off about it, but I am out of time already. But ensuring equity for all of our students is something I'm extraordinarily passionate about.
John.
I don't have any specific issue of why I'm running. I mentioned this in the opening statement that I believe that Linn-Mar has a very, very good reputation in basically all areas, and I would like to see that continue. And I think that the only way that can continue is if people get involved and run for the school board and get involved by being vocal and communicating to the school board what they're interested in and what they would like to see. But like I said, I don't necessarily have any specific issues, except I do have 2 grandchildren that live in the district, and I'd like to make certain that the excellence of this district continues.
Rachel.
I think the 2 biggest issues that the district faces right now is the growth and the bond. If that passes, we're going to need to implement it responsibly and cost effectively. And if it doesn't pass, we're going to have to come up with some creative solutions to figure out where we're going to put our kids. And then I think the other huge issue that Bob Anderson touched on is collective bargaining. We don't really know exactly what that's going to look like going forward. We're sort of going to be playing it by ear and figuring it out as we go along. But in the meantime, our teachers are concerned. They're worried about their livelihood. They're worried about their professional development. And I think the board is going to have to do a good job of reassuring them that we're behind them, because if we want to attract the best teachers and retain the best teachers, then they need to know that we are on their side.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we are just about out of time. We'd like to provide the opportunity for each of the candidates to provide a few closing remarks, and Bob Gable, will begin with you.
I will tell you what I bring to this is the willingness, the ability, the desire to listen and help the community in solving problems and continuing to grow. I will say tonight has been very enlightening to me, just sitting up here and listening to all these people and their different perspectives. Some of us were the same and some slightly different. But just in this hour and a half, I've learned a lot about what's important to the district. I would take it as my role going forward to continuing that listening, working with other members of the school board, and not losing focus on why we're there, and that's to bring the kids to the level that they need to be successful in life. And I'll tell you, that's the passion that I have on doing this job.
Derrick.
Yes, thank you again to the Chamber and to Medco and Bob for moderating tonight. I want to thank all 5 of you sitting up here with me. I know for me personally, this was not an easy decision to run. I'm glad that the group of us is up here and we had this conversation tonight. So again, thank you for being up here and showing this audience that we all care deeply about this district. Our district's future is very bright. We are very fortunate to be here, to be talking about these issues with all of you. Based on the number of people here, it's easy to tell that we are all advocates for this district. We all want what's best for our kids. We all want what's best for our students. We all want what's best for our community. Our issues revolve around positive things: growth, both in population and students, opportunities for our students, and how we're going to pay for those opportunities. These are all positive conversations we can have as a community together. I'm ready to help lead those conversations as a member of the Linn-Mar Board of Education, and I'd appreciate your vote on the 12th of September. Thank you.
Kara.
I also would like to say thank you to all of you that came out tonight, everybody that's sitting up here at the table with me. Every time I have the opportunity to sit and just talk about our district, I leave with my bucket full. So I promise that regardless of what the outcome is on September 12th, that my involvement in this district is not going to change. I would, of course, love to have the opportunity to have that involvement be in a more official capacity, and I would like to take this moment to ask every single person in here to not only vote for me on September 12th, but to vote yes for the bond, and I challenge everybody to take at least one person that is not your spouse or your family member with you to vote also. Find a friend that would not otherwise vote, because it's going to take more than those of us that show up at the polls every September, regardless of whether there's a bond issue or not, to get the bond passed.
John.
I would like to echo many of the things that these people said earlier, but I would also like to remind you of my experience and my leadership should be very valuable for the district, and I'd like to leave you with a little example. I think every individual, if you stop and think, you each have strengths and weaknesses. And if you're honest with yourself, you worry about those weaknesses way too much. You need to build on your strengths, work on your weaknesses, but build on your strengths. And I think school districts are like that too. They have strengths and weaknesses. Linn-Mar has a lot of strengths, but we also have some weaknesses. Growth is one of those strengths, and we can't treat it like it's a problem. It's something to rejoice in and move towards. So I would like to promise, and the last thing I say, that I would always listen to your questions and concerns, and I'll always give you an open and honest answer.
Rachel.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight and talk about something that I am so passionate about, which is our schools, however nerve-wracking this format may be for me to speak in. I said earlier, I think I bring a unique perspective as the mother of younger kids, and I would like to be a part of the team as we go forward with the bond, with collective bargaining, with all of that. I think that I can be effective. I think Linn-Mar is doing some wonderful things, and I think we need to figure out a path forward to continue that excellence that we're known for. And I would be honored to have your vote on September 12th, and I urge you to vote yes on the bond.
Bob Anderson.
23 years ago, I had a friend who said, there's going to be an opening at Linn-Mar and you need to apply. And this person kept encouraging me throughout a whole year of teaching, and I did. Probably the best decision of our married life. Oh no, it wasn't that simple, because I stole her from a job and we had just built a house. And there were all of these problems. But I will tell you that I, as an educator, could not have taught in a more satisfying public school education. I was given the opportunity to grow as an educator because of the brilliance of what was going on a school board and a willingness for a community to grow. Linn-Mar can constantly celebrate, and that's been going on, and this growth discussion has gone on for 22 years or more. So yes, it is a great thing. What I want to be able to do now, because I have the skills as a collaborator, I have the skills of understanding education and how it works and and what people need in a classroom, I can bring those ears and those words to help better situation for kids. And that's what I want to do, and I want to passionately give it back. And so I too would appreciate your vote first, yeah, for the bond. And then I would also appreciate your vote to be on the school board.
On behalf of the Marion Economic Development Corporation and the Marion Chamber of Commerce, thank you for attending tonight's forum. As you know, the decisions made by our local school boards have great impacts that critically shape policy and overall quality of our K-12 systems and broader community development. This reminder also that the forum will be posted on the host organization's YouTube channels Friday. The job is now up to you as voters. Please remember to vote September 12th. Thank you to our candidates, and thanks to each of you for attending. Thank you.